On that note, we're going to hand it over to Eric, and he's going to tell us why an AVID form is important.
Yeah, exactly. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for having me back. As Jim said, can everybody hear me, by the way? Do I need to move this up? How's that? Is that better? No? Okay. There's only so far up I can go. Maybe the tie would work better. How's that? Is that better? Okay. Before we get to the AVID, we did not cover all of the hottest issues in today's real estate market that David Bright sent me up here with last month. I talked to him yesterday, and he assures me that they are every bit as hot today as they were 30 days ago when I was here. In fact, they may even be hotter. So get ready to sizzle as we finish up on the hottest issues in real estate today. One of the things we did not get to cover was the impact of foreclosures. I guess foreclosures are having an impact. So one of the big things that has changed in the last, I don't know, probably 23 days has been an amendment to the law that deals with the way that foreclosures are handled in the state. Anybody know what I'm talking about with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Glad to hear it. The big change is that with certain properties that were sold between, I think, 2003 and 2007, if they are going into foreclosure, you have to tack on an additional 90 days to the waiting period that you would normally have, which was, anybody know what the normal waiting period time was? Anybody? It was 90 days. Okay, so you tack on another 90 days to that, and you're at, anybody? 180 days. There we go. All right. Somebody's awake. The idea behind that is probably no big surprise that it's supposed to give additional time for the lenders and the borrowers to work together in doing a short sale or doing a loan modification, restructuring the loan, something like that. So the way it works now is the following. If you are dealing with any type of property that is not residential, owner-occupied, 1 unit to 4 unit property, it's the old foreclosure law. I don't know how many foreclosures you see on non-residential property, but if you are looking at that, or if you're looking at income property, rental property, something like that, vacant land even, it's the old foreclosure law. And the old foreclosure law was you file a notice of default after the first payment is missed, or whatever. That's the time that you can file your notice of default. You wait, I think it's, you wait 90 days. Then you can notice your trustee sale. Then you can have your trustee sale 20 days after that, and it never really goes that quickly. But anyway, that's what the law allows you to do. The new law that came into effect probably last year tacked on a 30-day period at the beginning of the foreclosure process. But that only applied to residential property, owner-occupied, 1 to 4 units, owner occupying one of those units, that closed escrow between, I think, January 1st of 2003 and December 31st of 2007. So if you're dealing with a property that closed in that time frame and fits those parameters, the lender, the lien holder, whatever the foreclosing person is supposed to make a phone call up the borrower first, and try to explore the various options to foreclosure. If you can't get in contact with the borrower, you're supposed to keep some sort of evidence that you made a good faith attempt to do so. And once you've either talked to the borrower and had this conversation, which, by the way, nothing has to come out of this conversation, you just have to have it. Obviously, you don't have to offer the borrower any actual help, but you do have to go through the motions. Once you've done that, you have to wait 30 days, then you can file your notice of default, wait 90 days, and notice your trustee sale, have your trustee sale, take back the property. The new law that went into effect on, I believe it was July 1st, or maybe it was, it may have been June actually, whatever it was either June or July, tacks on the additional 90-day period to the waiting period that's in between the notice of default filing and the notice of the trustee sale. So it applies to exactly the same property that the other one did. Residential, owner-occupied, 1 to 4 units, 2003 to 2007. So if you are dealing with one of those properties and it is in default and it is in foreclosure, you might have an additional 90 days. And after having said all that, I use the word might. I'll tell you why, because there's a huge caveat to this law. Anybody know what it is?
Purchase money.
No, it's not that actually. It is any lender that wants to can apply for an exemption to it, and all they have to do is they have to show the Secretary of State that they have implemented an alternative plan to foreclosure. In other words, that they have some sort of loan modification program that they are offering. They don't have to show that they are actually doing any loan modifications, only that a plan is set forth and that they have it and it's out there. And if you can do that, evidently you can get an exception to this additional 90 days. Now, I don't know how many lenders have applied for this. My assumption would be 100% of the institutional lenders have probably done it and gotten it. But you can go to, I think it's the Department of Corporations website is supposed to maintain a list of the lenders that have applied for and received the exemption. And then there's obviously a waiting period where the DOC goes through your application. So if you applied for it as a lender, I think there's a grace period where you don't have to comply while the state is considering your application. So anyway, try to find that list. The last I heard it was supposed to be on the DOC website, which I think is like ca.doc.gov or something like that. But anyway, if you are dealing with a foreclosure property or a short sale or something like that, just be aware you might have an additional 90 days to pull it off. But check with it and see whether or not the lender that you're dealing with has the exception. The other question that always pops up is the effective date, which is now coming back to me June 15th of 2009. That was the date that this new law went into effect. So the big question is, to what loans does it apply? Does it apply to loans that were in default before June 15th? Does it apply to foreclosures that are instituted after June 15th? Well, nobody really knows the answer to that. The law is what was called emergency legislation, just like the previous one was. And as with anything else, when you receive sort of emergency care, it's kind of on the spot and tends to overlook certain things, as this law did, and it didn't really specify to what loans does it apply. Our firm represents some companies that do trustee sales, and they were taking the position that the law only applied to foreclosures that were instituted after the effective date of June 15th. And there were a lot of lenders that took this same position because in the days and weeks previous to the law coming into effect, a lot of lenders were ramping up, getting their NODs filed and starting the foreclosure process under the theory that we will not have to give this additional 90 days. Borrowers and their consumer advocates, in other words attorneys, will probably take the position that no, any foreclosure that is currently pending as of the date that this law comes into effect gets the additional 90 days. Who's correct? Who knows? If it gets litigated, court will make a conclusion and we'll find out. But for right now, the law is in effect. You might have an additional 90 days to pull that short sale out of the bag, but then again you might not. So check with the lender, see if they've got the exemption. Disclosure issues in foreclosures. We'll probably get to that a little bit when we talk about the agent's visual inspection. But if you're dealing with an REO, obviously the lender doesn't have any disclosure obligations really. They're TDS exempt. They don't really know much about the property, probably because they haven't owned it for very long. They don't have any personal knowledge of it. So what do you do if you're in this situation? If you're representing a buyer, or quite frankly, if you're representing the REO seller, what are your disclosure obligations? The TDS is exempt. Do you have any disclosure obligations? Anybody know?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. All right, we'll move through that. So that's easy enough. Yeah, your disclosure obligations are the same whether or not the seller has any or the seller owes a TDS or not. You've got to make